Hello, welcome to Criminality, a true crime podcast. Today, we will be talking about the ongoing case of Cassie Carli. Cassie was a Florida woman born in 1985 in Santa Rosa, where she resided until the point of her death. The scope of this case begins when Cassie met her ex-boyfriend, Marcus Spanavello, for a routine custody exchange of their daughter on Sunday, March 27th, at the parking lot of Juana's Pagodas, which is a restaurant in Navarre Beach, Florida, at around 7 p.m. According to the family, the two did not normally meet in Navarre when exchanging their daughter, but it did happen on occasion as Marcus tended to employ a babysitter in the area. Navarre was also closer to where he was found working later that week in Alabama, so he might have had used this as an excuse to lure her to that parking lot. In either case, like I previously mentioned, they met at the parking lot around 7 p.m. and while police may not be giving out all the information, it seems that they had some trouble obtaining much information from cameras in the area as it was nearly dusk, so this may have hampered visibility. So, about 2 hours worth of unaccountable time later, Cassie's father gets some text messages from her stating that she had car trouble and is staying the night with Spanavello. While the texts seem a bit sketchy to me at first glance, Cassie's dad seems to have been appeased that evening. But the next day, after receiving some texts from Spanavello himself claiming to have dropped off Cassie somewhere remote near the beach of Destin, Florida, so that she could visit a friend and that he still had their daughter, he knew something was wrong and reported her missing. Navarre police immediately sprung to action and found her vehicle on Tuesday, March 29. Once they searched that vehicle, they did not like what they saw.
Is there anything beyond just the purse being with the vehicle that leads you to believe that she didn't just walk off on her own?
Not that I can speak to right now. But like I said, obviously, I've been married 32 years, and I'll tell you, my wife goes nowhere without her purse. So to think that she just left it there and just walked off is, that's what concerns us.
When you say her purse, is that like all of her, like she left her ID, all that stuff was still in the car, or just a purse?
There were things in the purse we won't comment on, but there's things in the purse that, like I said before, we don't think she would just up and leave.
She was last seen almost 4 days now. Can you speak to whether that's concerning to keep going yet another day with no sign of her?
Oh yeah, it's very concerning. I mean, and we take everything seriously. Missing persons cases, a lot of them, we find the person, everything's fine. But usually you don't go 4 days without hearing from them or them using a credit card or a cell phone or something. And right as of now, we have none of that. So yeah, we're concerned.
So you can confirm that she's had no cell phone or credit card activity since Sunday?
That we're aware of.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why we have, we didn't just assign a detective. Our entire major crimes unit is working this. So you've got 10 detectives that's pretty much all they're doing right now is trying to locate Cassie.
I want to make a note of praising the Navarre Police Department because I have certainly seen many cases where the PD dropped the ball because they do not take it seriously enough from the beginning, but the Navarre Police Department took it seriously and dedicated substantial resources to the case. On Wednesday, March 30th, Spanavello and their daughter were located in Birmingham, Alabama, which is roughly 250 miles north of Navarre Beach. At first glance, there was nothing out of the ordinary with Spanavello being in Alabama, as he was working there, nor did the cops immediately declare him a suspect, but they did express great interest in talking to him, as at the time, he was the last known person to have seen Cassie alive. Not to mention the fact that he still did have their daughter, so he had some explaining to do. 3 days later, on April 2nd, Spanavello was arrested in Tennessee on charges related to Carli's disappearance. His charges included tampering with evidence, giving false information concerning a missing person investigation, and destruction of evidence. Because footage of the interrogation has not been made available to the public, we do not know exactly what Spanavello told police, but he must have given them the same story about supposedly dropping Cassie off to a friend's house, and police could have easily checked that by tracking his cell phone GPS. We do know that he told police officers that he threw her cell phone out of his window because she had forgotten it when he had dropped her off, and he didn't care about her property anyways, which is probably how they charged him with destruction of evidence. From there, it only went from bad to worse for old Spanavello when, that same night, Carli's body was found in what was described as a shallow grave in a property that was confirmed to have had ties with Spanavello in Alabama.
For the family of Cassie Carli, a week of haunting unknowns has come to a devastating conclusion. Carli's body was found buried in this Springville barn. So what is Spanavello's connection to the property where Carli's body was found? We tracked down the property's owner. He tells us that Spanavello was helping him renovate this home, which is only about 150 yards away from the barn where Carli's body was buried.
Of course, the family was devastated to hear the news, but they had had their suspicions from the beginning.
Tell us what it was like when you first found out that Cassie could not be located. Now, again, for the audience just joining us, she on Sunday night around 7 o'clock, she goes across the causeway in Navarre Beach to pick up her daughter. This was relatively normal, right, you guys? I mean, relatively normal to pick up her daughter on a Sunday night because her daughter was in her father's custody on the weekends. Do I have this correct? And then something went wrong. Can you kind of walk us through exactly what transpired?
It was every other weekend, and it was actually supposed to happen in Destin. It wasn't normal for her to be meeting him there.
I want to hone in on the phone for just another second because Cassie's father received text messages from Cassie's phone. I think it was at some point that night, and that was, I think that was a bit alarming to the entire family. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've told me that was alarming to the entire family, correct?
Yes. That the text messages my father received from my sister's phone were nothing of typical speak my sister would have said, especially the claims of car and phone troubles at the same time. She would have walked to the nearest gas station if she had to before getting Marcus for any type of help in a situation like that.
Something else I've looked at with these text messages recently is if you look at the way the punctuation is and the verbiage, he slips up, I believe, in some of these text messages and leaves out words like he typically does in his own text messages. It sounds like him.
And I want to just backtrack for our audience because I know you guys have been talking about this so much, but what you are saying is that you do not believe that the text messages about the car being broken down, those text messages that went from Cassie's phone to the phone of her father were not sent by Cassie and
We do not believe that those messages were sent by Cassie.
And who do you believe sent them?
Marcus.
Marcus.
She's the last person to see her alive.
She's been telling me for the last 2 years that this dude has been threatening her. He's pulled a gun out. She's worried. She's never wanted me to come around. And she's always said, if something happens to me, it's him.
While the autopsy report has not been released to the public yet, the main deputy on the case says he has seen enough to warrant a conviction.
It's your baby's mother, and she's missing, and you're not going to cooperate with authorities. That's kind of telltale. I think we have a great case, and I think he's either going to spend the rest of his life in prison or he's going to get the needle. So hopefully the needle.
So while we may not know how Spanavello allegedly did it, we can take a pretty good guess as to why, and it comes from Cassie herself. On a GoFundMe started by Cassie's sister on behalf of her, titled Help Cassie with Legal Fees, Cassie explains, in July of 2017, on the heels of one of the most traumatic events in my life, I met the man who became the father of my precious daughter. Like so many relationships I know, I was swept up in hidden deceit known as charm. This man was a master at the game of manipulation, and though I thought I could see all the warning signs of an abuser, I believed his excuses and became stuck in his web of narcissistic lies. Just months into the relationship, I discovered that I was pregnant. Let me be clear, I have never regretted my decision to become a mother. My daughter is truly the light and love of my life. During pregnancy, this man's abusive control and manipulation escalated, but having battled infertility in my first marriage, I desperately wanted a family. So, I justified his erratic behavior as long as I could. By the grace of God and great friends, I chose to end the relationship with him. I knew that raising my daughter alone would be better than exposing her to a toxic home life relationship. When I ended the relationship with him, and he no longer had control of my mind, his web of lies and deceit spread like wildfire. He filed dozens of false police reports. He'd call CPS so many times, I nearly came to know most of the staff by name. The passive-aggressive abuse was so bad, I had to trespass him from my apartment on more than one occasion. In 2019, I filed for sole custody of my daughter. The court allowed him to have bi-monthly visitation and ordered him to pay child support. To date, he owes me over $10,000 in support, and a few weeks ago, due to child support delinquency, the state was set to suspend his driver's license. Just days after that notice, he called CPS to report yet another false claim. He was allowed to pick up my daughter that day for his regularly scheduled weekend visit. For over 2 weeks, I have not had contact with my daughter or knowledge of her whereabouts. I called everyone I knew. I sought help from local police and every government agency I knew. No one could or would help me. My only hope was a powerful attorney who would not fall for his manipulation or believe his lies. But great attorneys are expensive. My family has leveraged everything we have to try to raise the $10,000 needed to fight this man in court. Currently, I am over $5,000 short. I need your help. My daughter needs your help. Every single dollar raised will be used to protect my daughter. Thank you for your prayers and support. I love and value each of you. While there are multiple sides to every story, we can see a clear picture of an abusive and narcissistic manipulator who was doing everything in his power to make Cassie's life miserable now that she had been able to extricate herself from his influence. To me, the $10,000 in child support owed, as well as the mounting repercussions, had become inconveniences to him, which very likely motivated his actions. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe.